Hi, my name's Chris Tackett, and I run a website at christackettnow.com, where I chart Texas politics in statewide, Senate, and House races. Thanks for taking a few minutes to let me walk you through what's happening in campaigns in Texas today. To make sure everyone's grounded in the basics, let's start with how donations find their way to campaigns or influence our political process. Individual donors, which are people like you and I, and political action committees both give directly to campaigns. Texas prohibits corporations from directing funds to candidates, but company employees can give to a PAC, which can then give to a campaign. You also have foundations and nonprofit groups that don't give directly to campaigns, but they produce educational materials about an issue or point out a candidate's voting record. These expenditures are not directly attributed to a candidate, so they don't get reported on the finance reports. This is what you may have heard referred to as dark money. The other thing to consider about campaigns in Texas is that we are one of a handful of states where there are no limits on the amounts that can be contributed by individuals or PACs. The Texas Ethics Commission is the overseer of campaign finance for all state-level races. Candidate campaigns and PACs are required to file reports with the Commission on a regular basis. Everyone involved in campaigns has to file semi-annually in January and July. If there's an active election, they also have an additional filing requirement 30 days and 8 days before an election. These are the windows of time where the public gets the opportunity to see what a campaign is taking in and where they're spending. If you've ever been to the Texas Ethics Commission website, you know it's not the most user-friendly experience. When you go in looking for information, you have to know specifically what you're looking for. When you find the filer you're looking for, you'll get a high-level summary of the filing period with total contributions, expenses, and cash on hand, but no details. If you want the details, you have to click the link for the PDF, which is a scanned copy of the forms, which could be up to 40 or 50 pages, or you could get a CSV file, which opens up as a spreadsheet. Unless you're a person who really loves spreadsheets, this is going to make your eyes glaze over, but there is really important information here. What I've tried to do is take this information from the Texas Ethics Commission and maybe make it a little more user-friendly. This is a screenshot from my website. On it, you can see there's pie charts, lists, and bar charts, and they all have drop-downs that allow you to control what you're seeing. This is real data from Bob Hall in Senate District 2 from January 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018, so an 18-month period. We're going to start with the big pie chart. Above and below the pie chart, you'll see that Bob Hall has raised $1.3 million from 657 donations, with the average donation coming to $2,103. On the pie chart itself, you'll see it has 10 slices. The first 9 slices on all candidate charts are the top 9 donors. The 10th slice is all other donors. When you look at the chart, you can see that Empower Texans PAC is the top donor, giving $393,000. The graphic representation lets you quickly see that this is more than 25% of the total raised by the campaign. If you're the person that really wants the details, you want to see everyone who's given to the campaign, I've got that for you too. The list in the center of the dashboard has the top 20 donors to the campaign, sorted from who's given the most to the least. If you want to see every donor, you just click the arrows on the bottom of the list. Each time you click it, 20 more will display. We know intuitively that those who give to a campaign are the ones the candidate is most likely to listen to once they get to Austin. The bar chart at the top of the page lists the top 10 cities that donations have come from. The pie chart at the bottom has 5 slices. The top 4 donor cities get their own slice. The 5th slice is all of the other cities rolled together. In this example, you can see that Bob Hall in Senate District 2, which is part of Dallas and Points East, that Dallas is the only in-district city in the top 4. That means that over 75% of Hall's contributions come from outside his district. I want to shift now to a definition. Political action committees, or PACs, are organizations established by special interests or corporations to allow individuals to pool their money to advocate for a political campaign or a political cause. In Texas, we have three primary types of PACs. The S PAC is specific to an individual candidate and follows that standard filing schedule I talked about at the beginning. The G PAC is a general purpose PAC and can give to multiple candidates or causes, and it also follows that standard filing schedule. The M PAC is also a general purpose PAC, but based on the way it's set up, actually files monthly. Now let's go back and look at Bob Hall's contribution pie chart. At the top of his donor chart, you'll see the Empower Texans PAC giving $393,000. There are other PACs in his top 9. Here's the Texas Right to Life PAC and the Texans for Lawsuit Reform PAC. So 3 of his top donors are political action committees. Now, when I think about PACs, I think about lots of people getting together to amplify their voices. Regular Texans who are advocating for something. If you put thousands of everyday Texans together to make something happen, that's referred to as being grassroots. Now let's take a look at the top 2 PACs who are giving to Bob Hall. Here's the Empower Texans PAC, which was his top donor. Over the same 18-month period, they took in $4.6 million from 423 donations with an average donation of $11,000. The pie chart for the PACs are the same as the candidates. The top 9 donors are the first 9 slices. The 10th slice is all other donors. For Empower, the top donor is Tim Dunn, who gave over $2 million. Ferris Wilks is second with $985,000. Now, when you look at the 10th slice, you can see that it's less than 5% of the total, which means that 9 donors gave 95% of the $4.6 million. That's not very grassroots. Now let's look at the Texas Right to Life PAC. Texas Right to Life has taken in $2.9 million from 556 donations with an average donation of $5,277. On the surface, these pie charts look very similar. The top donor here is Ferris Wilks with $1.2 million. Yes, it's the same Ferris Wilks from the Empower Texans PAC. Now, when you go down the list, there's a whole lot of other donors in common. Dan Wilks, Kyle Stallings, Holloway Frost, Tim Dunn, Dick Salisbury, and Darlene Pendry. This certainly doesn't feel very grassroots. Now let's go back to Bob Hall's contribution pie chart. Not only did he have the Empower Texans PAC and the Texas Right to Life PAC as top donors, he also had Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks and Dick Salisbury. This means that the top donors to Bob Hall aren't just the PACs. It's the same donors who were also the top donors to the PACs. This doesn't feel right. So what's happening in Texas today? You have big donors who are giving directly to candidates. You have PACs out there who are also getting major contributions from those same big donors. The PACs are then turning around and giving to the candidate. The candidate starts reaching out to the voters. Maybe it's that first mailer introducing themselves. And shortly thereafter, the PACs start endorsing candidates and sending mailers to you. It starts to fill up your mailbox. Then you have these other groups that live outside the margins. These are the foundations and the nonprofit groups that educate voters on issues. You dig a little deeper and you find out that these groups are either funded by the big donors or they have them on their board of directors. Now you're getting mailings from these groups as well. But these look a little different. Rather than being for the candidate, they're pointing out a voting record of the opponent, highlighting an issue that their candidate's for, or maybe even sending out things with official sounding names like the Texas Ethics Disclosure Board to attack an opponent when that's just another assumed name for a foundation. These items seem like they're independent, but they are really all coming from the same source. You also have PACs that reach out to candidates they've endorsed, and they tell the candidate that if you give us money, we'll send out mailers and post on social media supporting you. Here's what it's going to cost. The candidate will then give the PAC the requested amount of money, and the PAC will send you even more mail. It appears like it's coming from the PAC, but really, it's the candidate paying for their own press, paying 100% of the cost, with those dollars coming from the same big donors. None of this feels good to me. It doesn't feel honest. You have a handful of donors in Texas creating the appearance that a candidate has broad support coming from all of these sources. But the reality is, it's all coming from a small group of people trying to influence elections and put the people who will do their bidding into office. What should we be striving for in Texas? We need people-powered candidates. We start with a donor who gives to a candidate. Then we see lots of other individual donors giving directly to the candidate. These donors would mostly be the people who live in that district, those people with a real stake in how their representative will speak up for them in Austin. These are the people who believe in this candidate. Now, when the candidate sends information out to voters, you know that this is what the candidate believes, not what mega donors are telling them to believe. To me, this is the optimum and what we need more of in Texas. So now that you know what's happening out there, what can you do with that knowledge? Start by leveraging the tools that exist. The Texas Ethics Commission site may be tough to love, but it does house every bit of the information on campaign finance. You can also go to sites like opensecrets.org. They track campaigns all across the state and the country. There's also websites like mine at christackettnow.com, where if you're interested in the races that I track, those statewide Senate and House races, I've got information you can use. So now that you have the information, leverage your networks to spread the word on what's happening in Texas politics. Grab screenshots and share them on your social network feeds. Talk about what you've seen. In face-to-face opportunities in your community, talk to people and fill them in on what's happening just below the surface. If they don't understand where the money's really coming from, help them out. The most important thing to do is leverage your vote in every election you can, local, statewide, and federal. The only way we can ensure we have politicians who represent us is to vote them into office. Again, my name's Chris Tackett, and I chart Texas politics. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Now go out and make a difference for Texas.